2001, I'm a quadriplegic.
Really?
Yes, not a, I was quadriplegic. So I was deep into downhill mountain bike racing at that time. And I was practicing a dirt jump in Canmore to try to do it at speed over and over again, try to get really efficient at it. And I was doing it for about an hour and I was getting tired and I was like, okay, one more. So I sprinted to this jump and I land short. The tire hits the lip of the other end. My head goes forward into the ground. I'm still awake and breathing heavy because I just sprinted into this jump. I'm conscious, but I can't move from my neck down. I'm lying there. First thought comes to my mind, I'm going to paint with my mouth. I know. I was amazed. I was actually amazed at that thought. But I'm lying there with my thoughts, waiting for an ambulance to come. And 10 minutes later, I could move my foot a couple millimeters, my right foot. And I was like, yes. I couldn't do that, but I was like, yes. And I knew that my spinal cord wasn't severed. I just knew something else happened. Something else got damaged, but information was still going through. I'm telling you this story because that's where a big eureka moment happened for me. I learned a lesson. I get to the hospital in Calgary. The doctor said I would never walk again. But I already knew that I was going to because the information was getting through. 2 weeks later, I could flop my body like a rag doll to the edge of the bed. And I was like, I'm going to go for a walk. And then I'm sitting there and the nurse comes in and goes, Neil, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm going for a walk. And she goes, you can't. And then so she goes, wait. She brings in 3 more nurses and they kind of form a semicircle around me. And then I kind of edge myself off the bed and I fall to the ground like a puddle of water. I said, I have an idea. Can you pick me up? They pick me up through my armpits and I'm laying there. I have an idea. So in 3 seconds, let go. I go 3, 2, 1. They let go. I brace my abs as hard as I can. My knees buckle. I'm kind of hanging there like a marionette off of my own suspension system, my own joints, my own soft tissue. And I can't really hold my abs that long. So I let go of my abs. I fall to the ground. I go, whoa, that's amazing. Like I learned something from that. We as humans have our core firing throughout our day without us knowing about it to keep us upright against gravity. As I stand here, I'm like, I lost that ability subconsciously, temporarily. So if I could consciously contract it, I could still stand there. After a couple weeks later, I'd walk to the washroom with my abs really tight and I'm peeing and I'm like, if I let go of my abs, I'm falling in the toilet. So that was a big learning moment. So does anyone know how to brace their abs? Have you ever braced your abs or someone told you how to contract your abs?
Yeah.
Let's do a little experiment. Put your fingers on your belly, push in 1/2 inch. And then when you tighten your abs, your fingers should pop out. That's a brace. You know, 30 years ago when I first started working as a coach, it used to be abdominal hollowing. But that's kind of debunked now from research. You get a better contraction with a braced ab, or you get better support with the braced abs. And that's how your abs fire in real life. And so that's my eureka moment. And I vowed to myself from that point on that I will never take my core for granted ever again. I will never hang off my hips standing and waiting for someone. I won't hang off a desk anymore. Stuff like that. I see people sitting up. So it's hilarious. So I never hang off my hips anymore. It's a habit of mine. I do other things in my life that we'll get to in the presentation. But that's not the real thing I learned. A year later, I'm back to doing things. I want to get back to mountain biking. And I go, I'm going to train really hard. And I start to exercise really hard. But this is still 2002 at the point. And I hurt my back because after a year of not moving around or challenging my body, my soft tissue got a little thinner. My muscles got a little smaller. I trained really hard. My back guarded really hard. And the thing is, it didn't let off. And so has anyone taken 20 minutes to put on a pair of socks? Sitting there, you're crying, trying to put that sock on. I can't reach my toes. This went on for 6 months and I couldn't get it done. But the thing that I was doing was I was doing 3 things that most people do when they have lower back pain that you shouldn't do. But this is what they taught me 30 years ago. And the top 3 things that I was doing was I was stretching my lower back, and it kind of felt good temporarily. Then it kind of came back with a vengeance. Forgot to switch to the first slide. So there's the first slide. And I would attempt to strengthen my lower back directly, but that just kind of made it worse. Then I was like, well, I'll just rest a lot. But that didn't help either. I mean, it felt good when I was resting, but as soon as I got up, I could hardly stand up straight. So we're going to go through what I had to figure out to stop doing to get my back pain down, and what I had to figure out, what I had to start doing to make sure that I bulletproofed myself or reinforced myself to get myself more durable. So if I were to hurt myself again, it'd be less likely that my back would hurt. And these life lessons I gave myself, then I went down that rabbit hole as a personal trainer, strength coach. Every time I went to a conference, I'd pick the courses about sports medicine or human movement efficiency or lower back pain, joint pain. I never took those courses to teach how to be a better fitness instructor, like a spin instructor or anything like that. I picked the nerdy stuff. So I'm like a personal training nerd, basically. And from that, we're going to go through the 4 secrets. And if you don't do these 4 secrets, you're going to be more likely to sit on that bench while your friends and your siblings or your children play. And they talk about that hike they went on and you couldn't do it. Or maybe you won't be able to go on that run or skiing as long as you like. Who here has lower back pain and likes to be active? Who here has low back pain but doesn't like to be active? Well, that's good. Because if you put up your hand, then maybe this won't be perfect for you, because this is to teach you how to exercise and to reduce your lower back pain so you can stay active for a very long time. So common mistakes are stretching is good, but the type of stretches that you do, or the core exercises that you choose, or how you do them, and the type of sitting or too much sitting. Because some research, when you talk about common stretching mistakes when you have lower back pain, is structural issues. Perhaps your lower back is malaligned. And directly trying to stretch that lower back may make it worse. And so that's an issue. Hypermobile joints. If your joints are super loose and they're clunky, stretching that lower back might make the hypermobile joint looser, and it's going to cause more guarding, and more guarding is going to cause more pain. Tightness elsewhere. Perhaps you should look above and below. Like maybe you have tight glutes, maybe you have a tight mid back, and maybe that's going to help, and it's definitely not going to hurt compared to going directly to the lower back. Temporary relief. Stretching is an analgesic. Stretching does relieve pain. It's like taking a Tylenol, but it's only temporary, and it doesn't solve the underlying issue. Reinforcement of dysfunctional patterns. Perhaps if you just stretch, you're not really teaching your body how to contract the way it's supposed to contract, or teach you how to move properly again. And then leading to inactivity. If you just rest and not do anything, that's not good either. So we have to do exercise, but just at the right dose and at the right intensity, and choosing the right exercises. Core exercises, some are really good. That's pretty good exercise, but if you have lower back pain and a tight mid back, then perhaps that's not the best solution, is to do a rollout, because your lats will stretch out that lower back and tug on it. doing the old-fashioned sit-ups where you anchor your feet under a couch or someone's holding your feet and you're raising your torso up and down. Imagine that you have a rope attached to your lower back. And every time you come up, someone's pulling that rope and causing a shear load on your lower back. So that's why sit-ups aren't really recommended anymore, even if you have a healthy lower back. I don't do them anymore or recommend that for anyone either. Russian twists, you don't want to twist that spine with load if you have lower back pain. I like to do Russian shifts where I shift the weight out without the twist. Double leg raises, they're good exercise, but if you have lower back pain, maybe not do it because hip flexor muscles, some of them attach to your lower back. That might just aggravate it. Lower back hyperextensions, there's a machine at the Bill Warren or a bench that you can use it for glutes and hamstrings, but if you use it just for lower back extension, especially if you have lower back pain, I don't recommend that either. So there's a couple things. There's lots of really good things you can do. Really safe things like planks, side planks, anti-rotation exercises. If a cable's coming from the side and you're holding it like this and you're resisting rotation, your core is resisting that rotation, that's a good stability exercise as well. There's lots of other solutions.
The ab roll up, what's the downside to that ab roll up then?
What do you mean, like
You're not recommending it.
that guy? That one right there?
Yes.
If you have back pain and you have a combination of a really tight mid-back, most of my clients I assess have pretty tight mid-backs from a life of sitting and mostly sitting, right? Decades of desk work, and even road biking doesn't contribute well to that. So if you have a tight mid-back and that your lats wrap from here as you lengthen out, stretches out your lats, and your lats really attach by a big band of fascia to your lower back. When you're doing that, it's really just tugging on that lower back. And then your abs fire really hard, of course, because your abs are trying to protect your lower back. So it's kind of stealing from Peter to pay Paul sometimes. But if you have back pain, I wouldn't recommend doing that. You might get away with it, depends on your mobility at the time, but there's lots of other things I would do that's way more productive.
Is it strenuous for a person that even has a reasonable good back then? Or?
Yeah, if you have good mobility in other places and your pelvis is in the right place, then definitely if you do it and you're contracting your glutes and your abs at the right time at the long end of that, for sure. I'm just talking about if you want to recover and start to build up, try to create a window of opportunity for your lower back to start the healing process. I just want to get away from aggravating it. You know, everyone's different, for sure. But that's a great question, Rodney. All right, here are the answers, and then we'll dig deep and peel them apart. 4 secrets to an unbreakable back. To be like a kangaroo. I'm not saying be a kangaroo. I'm saying you want to train towards kangarooism, and I'll break that apart for you. You want to build your fortress around your lower back. You want to train against the grain. You want to exercise, snack. All right, let's get into this. Before we get into this, it's good to know that 80% of lower back pain can be helped with lifestyle changes. You know, genetically, they're saying 20% if you have lower back pain, it can't be helped, but 80% we can, you know, that curvature when we're getting to older age and we're starting to wear out our joints and our lower back, we can make that curve a little bit less archy by doing the right exercises and right solutions and strategies. So secret number 1, be the kangaroo. If you're not kangaroo-like, you will lack elasticity and your lower back will get undernourished. Now, what does that mean? Your human body is supposed to play in the world with elastic bands and muscles, and your body likes to trade. When you're younger, your body trades off between elastic bands and muscle contraction, and it's a trade-off all the time. When you're hurt and injured, you'll move a little bit less range of motion, and you'll be more mechanical, more muscle contraction like. which means your muscles won't have a chance to turn off when the elastic bands are working. Because when the muscles turn off, your joints get a chance to expand and get more nourishment with fresh synovial fluids, fresh oxygen. And then when the foot hits the ground, if you're running, your muscles contract and then push that fluid out. So when you get more elastic, kangaroo-like, then your joints get happier and there's an opportunity to heal. So how do we do this? You want to train tensional integrity. So I'm going to give you another metaphor over the kangaroo. I like to look at human beings as a warped mountain bike tire. And some people are more warped than others. And as we get older, we get a little more warped. So when we're looking at a warped mountain bike tire, we're looking for really loose spokes and really tight spokes. And when I'm doing an assessment, that's what I'm looking for on human beings. And I'm looking for the really looseness first. I'm like, okay, this is a really loose spoke on you. You definitely got to make sure that you do not stretch that loose spoke in everyday habits, or whether you're trying to stretch it on purpose because you're really good at that stretch. If you're good at a stretch, maybe you shouldn't do that stretch. Only stretch the stuff that you're tight or not good at. If I find a really tight spoke, we have to address that. Maybe you got that tight spoke from in your mid back from doing a lot of desk work, or maybe a lot of road biking, and we have to get some extension in there. So the extremes are what I'm looking for, and then we address that. So for a really loose spoke, I will make sure we build the program to try to tension that spoke and make sure that your standing postures, your sitting postures, your sleeping postures get a little cleaned up as well, because maybe your standing posture is loosening that loose spoke as well. Does anybody want to do an experiment standing up? Whoever wants to stand up, stand up. And you don't have to stand up if you don't want to. So what we're going to do, we're going to start with level 1. And you can let me know if you feel it. You're going to stand on one leg, stick your butt back. And I want to let me know if your knee goes in or goes out. Is anybody's knee going in quite a bit? Okay, good. Good to know. Thank you. That might mean that you have a loose spoke on your lateral hip. Does anybody's leg vibrating? Okay, good. We'll talk about that on quaking. All right, put your arm up. Try to step over your kneecap height and touch your heel to the floor. Yeah. Was it increased or exaggerated with the knee movement going in? Okay, you can sit down for a little bit. It's where I will look at that in an assessment to see a picture of someone's knees, seeing how their hips stabilize someone's knees. And if I see the knees go in, I will investigate further to see if there's a really loose hip in there. And if there is a really loose hip in there, and I see redundancy with that throughout the assessment, I'll say, okay, confirmation, you have a really loose lateral hip. And I see that in a lot of people. And I will find if they have a really tight internal muscle that's really tight and a loose lateral hip, I go, okay, if we tighten up the lateral hip, the tension inside the hip will get loosened a little bit. Tensioning the wheel of the mountain bike tire. Does that make sense at all? A little bit? That's how I look at the human being. So you want to tension looseness, you want to stretch tightness, you want to challenge your quaking. So if you're vibrating on one leg, or if you're in a plank position and your body's starting to vibrate, then we got to do more of that kind of stuff until the vibrations or the quaking settles down. And then you want to go to the next level of plank that makes you vibrate. And then you want to progress to agility exercises that create more of elasticity, to challenge the elasticity. You want to do the basic stuff to get the pain down, and then we want to get you more moving with rhythm later on. Working toward kangarooism is a non-negotiable when it comes to building an unbreakable back. Anyone have questions about secret number 1?
Well, I think it's
Kind of agility is speaking about right now.
Agility can go on any level, but in the beginning when someone has back pain, I will not introduce agility. I will just try to introduce the really looseness and the tightness without bounding and moving quickly. You know, that's what I would do with you in your program. And then we'll try to get the pain down. And then from there, when the pain goes down, then we can start to build some foundation, a little more, build more strength with a little more. When you get to the last rep, you're like, oh, okay, it's hard to do another one. And then when you got some more durability with the strength building, then okay, let's do some. Now your framework's a little more intact and it's less shifty, more symmetrical. We can introduce a little more faster movements from there. Yeah. Anyone else? Build your fortress. If you don't build a fortress around your lower back will be left to the battle of the demands of movement on its own. How to build your fortress. You want to strengthen your BAM. BAM is an acronym I use to define my definition of core. So a third of your core is your B, is your bum. A third of your core is your abs. A third of your core is your mid-back. I was at a conference about 10 years ago. There's a guy I love to follow. His name is Michel Delcourt from the Institute of Motion in San Diego. And at the conference, he said, what are the top 3 areas of the human body that love to get injured the most? Who wants to answer one of those? What's the most popular areas to get injured in North America? Lower back is one, yeah. Tim, you know one? Yes. Yes, what's the third one? Most popular? I would say like neck, shoulders, sure, yeah. And he also said there's the 3 areas of the human body that are most popular, or the weakest areas of the human body. And having said that, they're the biggest, most functional areas of the human body that are the weakest. And that is foot, ankle, bum, glutes, hips, the mid-back where the ribs reside and the shoulder blade resides. And then, isn't it funny that those really weak functional areas, everything else is in between? Your knees are in between your ankles and your hips. Your lower back's between your mid-back and your glutes. Your shoulders and your neck are above that. So it's pretty awesome that we know that so that we can give glute exercises and mid-back exercises without a prescription, and it's going to help on a level to support that fortress around these joints, to give you support for your knees, to give you support for that lower back above your hips, to give you support for that lower back below your mid-back, to give you some freedom in your shoulders with that mid-back. But having said that, you want to make sure that if you have loose hips, that you're actually tightening up those hips or part of those hips that are loose. If you have tight hips, you want to loosen them, and then you want to reinforce them with strength. Same with the mid-back. The mid-back is supposed to have twice the range of motion and twisting as the lower back. It's supposed to have twice the extension and flexion because the facets of the joints are smaller, but it ends up with posture over decades that it kind of gets glued together, and you end up getting nearly zero extension, zero flexion, zero rotation in that mid-back. And so the lower back has a lot of responsibility. It has to take up the slack of the mid-back, has to take up the slack of the glutes, has to do all the lifting and twisting of the mid-back and the glutes. So it's a lot of responsibility. All the major team players have gone on vacation. Lower back is doing everything. So it's tired, it's underappreciated, it's overworked. So that's why I think it's a no-brainer to address the glutes in the mid-back. And all the physios work on that stuff too. So that's why it's an acronym for me. Who has lower back pain at this moment? Van Keen. Okay. Do you want to, let's do this. Do you want to stand up here? Yes, I knew you would. Who else has lower back pain and wants to stand where they are? You can stand where you are. Okay. And anyone else, if you want to join this experiment, you can. So if you don't have lower back pain, you can still do the experiment. We're going to do an ab contraction experiment. So what you're going to do is, and actually, you're going to let me know if you feel your abs fire harder with the experiment. And at the end of the experiment, you're going to let me know if your lower back gets less achy as well, okay? So we're going to slouch forward first, and then you're going to brace your abs like I taught you earlier, as hard as you can. Squeeze them hard, and then relax. And kind of remember how that felt, how intense that contraction felt. Now you want to arch backwards. Tighten your abs as hard as you can. Did it feel stronger or less intense? Okay. Let's feel it make it harder. So now stand with good posture, decent posture, hands forward. Tighten your abs as hard as you can, and then relax. So for me, that felt almost twice as of a contraction. So how does the back feel with that?
Better.
Okay, let's BAM it out. We're going to BAM it out. So what you're going to do is you're going to stand like this. You're going to intentionally draw the shoulder blades back, draw them down a little bit. You're going to pucker up your glutes. Now squeeze your abs as hard as you can. Now it felt really strong for me. Everyone's going to have their own intensity. It feels stronger for most of you for that fourth version. And how'd the back feel for the fourth version? Did it feel like it? Because if you have an overarching lower back, if you pucker the glutes, it kind of puts it in posterior tilt. It kind of puts your spine in a good position, but it takes pressure as a foundation on your lower back. So that's how I look at the lower back with exercise. If someone's back hurts in an exercise movement pattern, I'll say, okay, let's see if we can BAM it out a little bit. And they can BAM it and then do the movement. And it usually feels better at a level, depends on the person. You can sit down. So there, feeling is believing. And then I progress the BAM workout. So in the beginning, we start doing a glute exercise by itself, maybe doing a mid-back exercise by itself. As you progress and have less pain, you want to do more dynamic stuff that includes the mid-back with the glutes in one movement pattern, getting closer to real-life situations. A strong BAM is crucial to support tired joints, generating power, encasing a bomb-proof back. Any questions about BAM and the fortress? Train against the grain. This is very important for Canmore people. If you don't train against the grain, your movements will groove in one direction. Because when we're young, kids are always moving in different directions. They're falling in different directions. They're jumping in different directions. But they're also really rubbery and very hydrated. And as we get closer to 50 and older, we're getting less hydrated and we have less time. So we're working lots and we're running a family and perhaps a business, and you have a certain amount of time to have your outdoor activity. So you tend to want to do your favorite one, right? You'll tend to do it all the time. And most people will do a unilateral activity, meaning we'll usually hike or snowshoe or run or classic ski all the time, or road bike, and it's always in one direction. So what I'm trying to say is when you go to the gym, maybe not concentrate on unilateral exercises only. Maybe try to introduce lateral movements, because the next time your friends goes, hey, you want to play pickleball? And all of a sudden you go sideways, you go, ah! You want to maybe introduce your body into a different pattern, moving sideways, so that it doesn't become a shock to the body when you finally get there for the first time in 2 decades. You want predictability in your body so that it's experienced that hip sideways with a reach. So that we get there for the first time, that it's not a surprise and guarding doesn't clamp down on you. So you want to counter the movements of your favorite activity, perhaps side lunges. But if you've never done side lunges before, then you have to start slow. Maybe do a side hinge, for example. And you got to start to rotate slowly, get that stuff introduced. with the right dosage, the right exercise. You want to exercise in the opposite direction of your posture. So most of my clients will do have a band at their desk, and we're going to get into the next one, exercise snacking, get deeper into that. But do exercises in the gym that go against your posture, road biking, classic skiing, desk sitting. So I always reinforce that or instill that in all the training programs I give my clients. Yes. And so basically, I see exercise in a gym or at home, and with a 50-50, 50% of your exercise can be unilateral because it's easier to accomplish that movement pattern, which means you can be able to load it more. Loading an exercise is important for your bone density and muscle and tendon and ligament. So easier unilateral movements are important for that. But the other 50% of your workout should be moving multi-directional, and that's submaximal. You're not going maximum loads with that because you're introducing tasking and connecting the dots with your nervous system. And then your body gets a little more durable and predictable. So 50% simple movement patterns, easier to accomplish, load it up once you get good at it with range of motion. The other 50% of your programming in your month is multi-directional. And then you progress that over time. Training against the grain is a paramount to building an unbreakable back. Any questions about that guy? No. Exercise snacking. If you don't exercise snack, you will be less prepared for play after desk work. I have an amazing job where I don't sit at a desk very much. That's why I think I'm going to do it till I'm 110. I get to demonstrate movement patterns. I get to stand. I get to walk around. I get to put equipment away. So all my clients that have a lot of desk work, I'll make sure that they have an elastic band sitting on their desk. I'll get into that because how you exercise snack is a bunch of different ways. Active sitting protocol, every 30 minutes you do 30 seconds of exercise. The alarm goes off. And this is just an example. And when the alarm goes off, I will make sure that you do either a glute exercise because you've been sitting on it, or a mid-back exercise because your spinal cord is being loaded under gravity in a stationary movement. So 30 seconds goes off, and I'll have them do this for 10 reps and then go back to work if you need to. I have clients now that put this in their pocket of their bike jersey for road biking, and then they get off to do that break, and then they'll start to do this. I think it's good for cross-country skiing too. If you're waiting for your friends or something, you have something like this, and do that while you're waiting for them, or you're having a snack. Active standing to make sure that you're not hanging off of your hip joint. I remember standing in a lineup for COVID in Calgary, massive lineup to get my shot, and watching everyone stand, because I just watch these things. I watch people walk. I watch people how they stand. I watch people how they sit. I'm like I told you, I'm a nerd, and so I see people that do this, and I'm like, oh my god, I want to go, hey, everybody. So that reminds myself that I'm like, okay, I'm doing ankle rockers. I'm toes up, heels up. I'm doing like this. I'm doing all my side lunges. I grab my son. He's smaller at the time. I'm doing squats with my son there, and all these different things you're doing, as long as you're just, because it feels better, better than just standing in one spot. You get tired standing, your back gets tired. But if you can do some stuff, I mean, it's kind of weird until it's not, right? Doing stuff like that in a lineup. But it's what I do. It's how I live my life. It's a habit now, but it really keeps my joints nourished. Active standing. Active walking. I make sure I have a bit of a shoulder swing in my walk, because I know my right shoulder communicates with my left hip, and I know that my mid-back and my glutes are going to blink on and off when I'm walking, and that's going to be part of my longevity of movement. So just keeping a little bit of a shoulder swing. not being so rigid. When I assess my clients, but like, yeah, you were hurt, so you walked with a shorter gait, so because it hurt to walk longer. But as we feel better, we kind of adopt that movement pattern, and we forget to remind our body to move the shoulders a bit more. Moving the shoulders a bit more will open up the hips a bit more because they have to sync. They sync together. They move together. Okay, so lifting tasks like picking up boxes, being really intentional with picking up with your hips and not bending that spine. It might take 1 second longer to pick up objects when you do it properly, but that's what picking up with the deadlift pattern with posture, or a single leg golf pickup, or picking up objects with a lunge and picking it up, even if it's a piece of paper. And I have a habit of picking up an object, bracing my abs before I pick it up, and then I pick it up. Even if there's a piece of paper on the floor, I'll grab that paper, I'll tighten my abs and pick it up. It's just a habit. When I'm playing with my son, I'm picking up that soccer ball. I go, I picked up that soccer ball with my right foot already too many times. I got to pick it up with my left a bit more. But that's how much of a nerd I am. But after a while, if you just slowly do it, it becomes a habit, and it's just what you do. I have a client that her back was hurting with vacuuming. And I go, so how do you vacuum? She goes, I vacuum like this. I go, okay, now you have your posture like this. Her husband's like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm vacuuming. And so she has posture. She's hinging. I go, well, you have to vacuum with your other arm. So her non-dominant arm, she has to vacuum with that too. So opening and closing doors. You got to think about all these things you do in life with lots of repetition. Going up and down the stairs. If you have back pain, I like to plant the heel to get the bum to fire. You know, going down the stairs, make sure the ball of the big toe lands first, to lock the ankle, to track the knee. So there's lots of things like that. Carrying groceries, picking it up with posture, carrying it with level hips, putting it away. When you're twisting, like shoveling snow that you lift with your glutes, you turn with your feet, throw the snow over there instead of like this and like that. I mean, it's a lot faster to do that. It might take you another 10 minutes to shovel the walk to do it like this, but I look at stuff like that as exercise. I'm like, okay, I'm doing squats. I get to exercise. I get to shovel the snow. That's how you look at it. So you're never putting stuff away like this. You can either pivot or you can turn and put it away. Being really intentional with that. Exercise snacking is 100% needed to spare your lower back, to give up the freedom to explore. Like another thing I forgot to mention with exercise snacking, you're sitting at a desk for 8 hours and you kind of, because you're so concentrated and focused, you've not done anything, time goes by so fast, and then you want to do your outdoor activity with your friends, but it's taking you another hour to warm up. But if you've been exercise snacking all day, you're going to have less time, you're going to have less pain when it comes to your activity after that bout of sitting, and you'll warm up. Your warm-up time will be slower or less time. You'll be more nourished in that spinal cord. Because it all adds up. So in summary, you want to train towards being that kangaroo. You want to build your fortress. Train against the grain. Exercise snack. If you implement these secrets, you'll ache less, you'll move well, you'll add years to your functional being. You have to choose a new path. Are you going to choose to do what you're currently doing, get the same results, or are you going to choose a new path? Who's going to do something different after today? So if it's a little overwhelming, I would choose the one thing that you think needs the most work and do that one thing for a month. And like, okay, I got this down a little bit. My habits are a little bit changed. Then maybe tackle the next thing after that. That's the hardest thing for you to accomplish. Movement is the fountain of youth. The more you move, the longer you keep doing the things you love. I like it, but I would add, the more you move well with the right dosage and the right exercises and the exercise snacking, the longer you keep doing the things you love, for sure. So strength coaches and physiotherapists at Advanced Sport Medicine, we implement the 4 secrets quite well. And so if you're looking how to map out your tensional model, your looseness, your tightness, we can definitely do that there for you if you need help figuring out what's loose and what's tight. And then you can choose your exercises a little more strategically from there. And then if you needed us to build your program, that's what we do. We can do that too.